why do you care so much about trying to return a non-American who was obviously a wife beater and a bad guy back to a country which was not his own?
Because I care that everyone under the United States is afforded the rights under the Constitution, and if we bypass that for him, what's stopping us from bypassing that for literally anybody else and just accusing them of being in a gang?
He's not an American, right?
He was in America. He was in America and was specifically protected from being deported.
I think the real conversation is whether or not Donald Trump actually facilitated his return. That's where people are getting, that's where the debate really lies.
Hi, Charlie. My name's Nate. I have a question about the Trump administration. Why are they refusing to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia?
Okay, so a couple things. I don't want to put you on the spot, but like how much research have you done into this topic? A fair amount?
A fair amount, yeah.
Okay, so is he a U.S. citizen?
No, but he had a judge-imposed order specifically preventing him from being deported that the Trump administration bypassed.
You are half right. Deported to just El Salvador.
Correct, which is where he was deported to.
Right, but the judge says he could be scooped up to any place at any time. Now it gets a little bit more complicated because they invoked the Alien Enemies Act. And so will you acknowledge that he was part of MS-13?
No. The only source that was saying he was a part of MS-13 was a cop in 2019.
Right. So what are the tattoos on his knuckles? It literally was like people.
So if you guys don't already know, we've been having this debate for quite some time now. This student specifically is asking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and there's a lot of chatter around Donald Trump not facilitating his return to the United States, whether it's constitutional or unconstitutional. Let me know what you guys think about that specific conversation. Do you think Trump should return him? Do you think he shouldn't? Anyways, Charlie Kirk is going to be debating the student, or at least answering his questions about that specific topic. So let's not do anything. Let's make sure we subscribe, like, and get into it.
People that are in that world that know gang iconography, so that is MS-13 tattoos. Also,
okay,
is it
just because he has that? Why should he be denied due process?
Okay, you're right, but he had due process for about 5 years, right? So the judge says you could be scooped up at any time, at any place. Alien Enemies Act actually says you do not get due process when you're an invader on enemy land. MS-13 was called an invading force. Also, isn't he from El Salvador?
Yes.
So he's back in his home country.
Which is where he was specifically legally protected from being deported to.
What was the excuse he gave not to go back to El Salvador?
Gang violence.
No, he said another gang was going to come after him.
Yeah.
So he was part of a gang.
He didn't use the words another gang.
No, he did.
Nope, he didn't. That's just a lie.
Again, he said another gang. Did he or did he not wear Chicago Bulls paraphernalia?
He did, and I don't think we can say that wearing Chicago Bulls paraphernalia
in Maryland
is enough to say that you have a gang affiliation.
Okay, again, so just so you guys know.
Yeah, so if you're a fan of Michael Jordan
actually I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan, but just so you know, I'm a massive Michael Jordan fan, but just so you know, and I hope you understand this, that the Chicago Bulls were the assigned team of MS-13 in the Baltimore metro area. And so we have witnesses saying that he was part of MS-13. We have the tattoos,
a police
right?
officer.
We have the fact that he's from El Salvador. Another gang was going to come after him. And I just want to make sure I understand, why do you care so much about trying to return a non-American who was obviously a wife beater and a bad guy back to a country which was not his own?
Because I care that everyone under the United States is afforded the rights under the Constitution, and if we bypass that for him, what's stopping us from bypassing that for literally anybody else and just accusing them of being in a gang?
He's not an American, right?
He was in America. He was in America and was specifically protected from being deported.
Okay, so when it comes to this debate, I think the real conversation is whether or not Donald Trump actually facilitated his return. That's where people are getting, that's where the debate really lies. Some people say, okay, he can return to the United States. We're going to allow him to, but we cannot force El Salvador to give him to us. They consider that a facilitation. However, some people say, no, you have to go get him. You have to go to El Salvador, pick him up, and bring him back here. Some people consider that a facilitation. But I will say this. Implying that Donald Trump is breaking the law by not explicitly going and getting him, I don't necessarily agree with that, because according to his administration, they say they are facilitating by allowing him to come back in, and by, like, let's say if he gets to the border or if El Salvador calls Trump and says you can come get him, they'll go get him. They're saying that, okay, that's facilitation. But If Donald Trump said, we're not going to go get him, we're not going to facilitate it, we're not going to do anything, forget you, Supreme Court, then you can argue like, okay, he's breaking the law. But he didn't actually say that. He just changed the definition of facilitate. But let me know what you guys think about this topic. The student obviously shows a lot of passion towards Kilmar Brego Garcia. Let's continue.
If it wasn't a gang tattoo, why did his girlfriend edit it out of all the photos that she was posting on social media? If there was nothing to hide, why did his girlfriend not want the world to see it?
My point is it's irrelevant whether or
question.
not it's a gang tattoo.
Oh,
Because
it's actually incredibly
we shouldn't
relevant.
be deporting people just randomly without providing them a trial or any kind of due process.
No,
if it wasn't bad
he
that
had
we
a
did
trial
that,
though. That's the thing.
If it wasn't bad that we did that, why did the Supreme Court rule 9-0 that we ought to return him,
Well,
facilitate his
so-
return to the U.S. and make sure that we give him a trial
no
before
one.
trying to deport him
So
again?
no one is debating the fact that he should not have been sent back to that specific country. But once he's in El Salvador, that's out of our hand. But what we are debating is whether or not this guy had a right to stay in America. He's an illegal alien, and every illegal alien here in America should be returned back to their country of origin. Period. Hard stop. And so
My question then is, without due process,
So
how do
according
we
to the
determine
Supreme
that someone's an
Court,
illegal
there are
alien?
3 ways to return somebody in America. Do you know the 3 ways?
No.
Okay. So the Alien Enemies Act, which requires no due process. That's what they used. There's also called expedited release, which means you've been here within 14 days or 100 miles of the southern border. Did not apply to him. And then anybody else that's here, due process. So under Biden, he had multiple court dates, due process, where he was able to make his case. A judge looked at him and he said, Mr. Garcia, I have to warn you, you might be scooped up at any time. We are not protecting you. There's an active deportation notice on your head, Mr. Garcia. Do you understand? And he said, I understand, I'm going to stay. Therefore, Garcia stayed. The only part of your argument is correct. What the judge did say is, we can't send you back to El Salvador. Hilariously, if we would have sent him to the Congo, which actually wasn't his own home country, or sent him to Canada, we would have been perfectly fine. So now he's in the hands of an El Salvadorian government. We admit that it was an administrative error, but what we will not admit is that it was not a moral error. There's nothing morally wrong with scooping up someone that's been warned for deportation, that broke into our country, that already had due process, and we did it so legally. There's nothing at all wrong with doing that. In fact, we should do that with millions of other people that are in this country right now currently. And final point.
So, if there's nothing at all wrong with that, then again, you didn't answer this question. Why did the Supreme Court rule 9-0
I
to
did
facilitate his return?
Again, so they can't facilitate it because he's in a foreign country. You want us to invade El Salvador? And then secondly, I will get to the next question. They ruled that he shouldn't have been sent to that specific country, of which I have granted that to you. Final point. If somebody is here not from America, send them back to their home country. Period. End of story. Not difficult. Thank you.
So, yes, the real debate is that the Trump administration is interpreting the word facilitation differently than a lot of, I guess, Democrats or other people want them to interpret it. That's the way the Trump administration is handling this situation. They're just interpreting the word facilitate differently. But nonetheless, I don't know too much about border patrol and foreign policy. I'm not going to lie. That's not my area of expertise. What do you guys think about this? I think this is a very strange case, though, because Kilmar Garcia wasn't here. He's not a U.S. citizen. He wasn't here on a green card. Or maybe he wasn't. He also wasn't here on the H-1B visa. I don't really know how he was in America legally. I've never really researched it. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if he actually had a deportation order. If he did, then I don't even understand how him getting deported was illegal. It's just a lot of foreign policy going in there. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think about this. My name is Elafar Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.